building a Shiloh for the Lord. Now, we all know, we are familiar with that term, Shiloh. Some people call it Shiloh, some people call it Shiloh, but I think it should be Shiloh, a more correct, according to the Greek, to the Jewish language, Shiloh. So building up a Shiloh for the Lord, that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, what is Shiloh? Shiloh is the place where it's a symbol, actually. It's a symbolic place because it is no more present today, but it was a place in the Old Testament where God instructed all the children of Israel. First of all, God instructed the elders of Israel to build Shiloh for him as a place of gathering, where he put his tabernacle, the place of his presence. So Shiloh is a symbol of the presence of the Lord, or the temple of the Lord. But what brought about the idea of Shiloh? Why did God come up with that idea? Well, the idea of Shiloh goes back to the history of the children of Israel in Egypt. You remember when the children of Israel were in captivity in Egypt, and God instructed Moses to go and set my people free. Now, that instruction to go and set my people free came also with a sub-instruction. And the sub-instruction says, go tell Pharaoh to set my people free, that my people might go up to the mountain to worship me. You remember there was an element of that instruction that says that set my people free, that my people might go out to the mountain to worship me. Well, that is what God intended, that the people of God will, come out of captivity and then go to the promised land. But when they get to the promised land, there must be a unified place. There must be a place, a specific place where all these children of Israel that have been delivered from captivity, where they are all supposed to gather together to recognize the Lord for what he has done for them, for his deliverance upon their lives, to recognize his goodness, and to be able to worship him in one particular place. In the Old Testament, God had to put his spirit in a place. And God was not he was not present in human beings that time. It's unlike today when we are all carrying the presence of God, and we are carrying God in us everywhere. But in the Old Testament, they needed a physical place. They needed a permanent place, a physical place where God will actually come and show up. So Shiloh, that place was called Shiloh. It is a place of the rest of the Lord. It's a place where the Spirit of the Lord was resting. It's a place of the manifestation of God. It's a place of the manifestation of the glory of God. It's a place of the presence of God, a place where the presence of God dwelt, a place where the glory of God dwelt, a place where the dominion of God was, a place where people knew that they could go to and find God, a place where they know for sure that God is there. Now, how does that relate to us today? How does that relate to us today? Always remember, every time you read a story or an event in the Old Testament, that is always a symbol of something to come in the New Testament. So when you read about Shiloh in the Old Testament, which is a place for the rest of God, it's a place of the rest of God, a place of God's presence, a place of God's dominion, a place of God's manifestation. When you read of Shiloh in the Old Testament, it was a concrete place, a permanent place, and it symbolizes something. It shows us the picture of things to come. It's a mirror of the future. So how does that mirror, what mirror does it show today? What does it mirror today? It's a symbol of the fact that just like God delivered his children from the captivity of Egypt and took them to possess a land and put his presence upon that land, that so also shall it be in the New Testament. In the New Testament, God will deliver every believer, each individual believer. There will be deliverance for every Christian. Every individual will be delivered from his own Egypt. And once he's delivered from his own Egypt, he's going to be delivered, not just to be delivered for deliverance sake, and for him just to live on the earth and go to heaven eventually when he dies, but he's going to be delivered so that he will be brought into the land of promise. The purpose of deliverance is for the believer to go into a land of promise. And in that land of promise, he's supposed to bring the presence of God there. In the Old Testament, he needed to erect a physical structure to symbolize the presence of God, to symbolize the dwelling of God upon a territory. But today, it doesn't have to be physical. It means to bring the glory of God, to bring the presence of God, to bring the truth of God, to bring the values of the kingdom of God into its specific sphere of influence. So just like the children of Israel those days needed to be delivered from Egypt, so also do we get delivered from our own Egypt, from our own Egypt of sin. But the purpose of salvation and deliverance is not just for us. It's for the purpose of taking back the earth. Just like the land of Canaan was promised to the children of Israel in the Old Testament, and their goal was to go, and because temporarily when they were in Egypt, there were nations that were occupying that land of Canaan. So that land of Canaan was not empty. It was not an empty land. It was a land that was filled of all kinds of people, all kinds of nations, that all kinds of principalities that were occupying that land, and they were treating it as their own possession. But God knew that the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. The same thing today as well. The earth is still the Lord and the fullness thereof. So when God delivers you from your Egypt, when he delivers you from sin, he's having a purpose, an intention in mind. He's delivering you with a thought that you will be relevant for him. You'll be relevant for his kingdom. You'll be delivered from your Egypt, from your sin, with a responsibility to go to identify your own sphere of influence. And when you go to your land of influence, you will go there and be able to take back that territory for God. So you are delivered, not just to be delivered and roam about the world, but you are delivered so that you might be able to carry out an assignment for God. That is what God was trying to tell Moses, to tell the children of Israel, and to tell Egypt, and to tell Egypt and Pharaoh. He was saying, let my people go so that they may worship me in the wilderness, so that they may worship me in the mountain, so that they may worship me in the land that I'm taking them to. So the purpose of deliverance is to go to the promised land. The purpose of deliverance is for you to find your promised land and take the worship of God there. To find your promised land and take the presence of God there. You are delivered. You are brought out of Egypt so that you might be brought in to your promised land. I mean, there is a scripture that actually talks about that in details. Deuteronomy chapter 6. Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 18. Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 18. So you are delivered for a purpose. Deuteronomy chapter 6. Verse 18. Okay, let me start with let me start with verse 22. Deuteronomy Pastor Derek, Deuteronomy chapter 6. Deuteronomy chapter 6. Pastor Sam Oluwatoye, blessings. Welcome. Well, Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 22 says, and the Lord showed signs and wonders before our eyes, and severe against Egypt, Pharaoh and his household. Then verse 23, listen to verse 23 closely. In verse 23 it says, then he brought us out from the land of Egypt. He brought us out from there, that he might bring us into the promised land that he has promised, that he promised to give to us, and our fathers. So God brought us, it's Deuteronomy 6:23. God brought us out of the land of Egypt. So there is always a purpose for deliverance. God brings you out of your Egypt. God brings you out of your sinful lifestyle. God brings you out of your past only for a purpose. God does not deliver without a purpose. God does not bring you out of the land of Israel, out of the land of Egypt, just for you to roam about the earth or for you to just go die and go to heaven. God has a goal. God has an agenda. Just like God had a goal that time to deliver, to reclaim back to himself the land of promise, the land of Canaan. You know, he had promised the land of Canaan to Abraham. And now Abraham was in Egypt, they had lost the land. But just like today, God had promised the earth to humanity, to man. And Satan came over to take possession of the earth. Now, God sent Jesus, just like he sent Moses as the deliverer. Jesus came as the deliverer to set up each one of us free from our own Egypt. And God always had an intention to take back the land of promise, the land of Canaan, from those nations that were possessing it. So also today, every segment of the earth, every piece of the earth must glorify God. And God still has an intention to take back the earth, not just from Satan, but from all principalities and powers, and from individuals, from ungodly people, from agents of Satan, from the ungodly, unbelievers who are occupying those pieces of land and territories of the earth right now. Every sphere of influence, entertainment, music, politics, culture, medicine, business, commerce, technology, religion, every sphere of life, God has an idea, because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So when God delivers you, God is seeing the picture like in the Old Testament. The Old Testament is just an illustration of what our life is supposed to be like in the New Testament. So we are delivered like a people, like the children of Israel are delivered from Egypt, but God doesn't just want them to roam about and to die and go to heaven. No. Heaven is our place of rest, but while we're on the earth, we are supposed to be occupied for him. He has an agenda for you. He has a purpose for you. That's why he left you on the earth. And what is that purpose? The big picture of that purpose is that you will find where your gifts are, where you identify your calling, you identify your passion. That your passion is a pointer to the piece of the earth that you are supposed to restore back to God. That your passion, that your gifting, that your territory, that sphere of life that you have passion for, that you feel that you are supposed to go and take, that is your piece of land where that you are supposed to reclaim back to God from the forces that are holding it right now, or from the forces of darkness that are occupying it, or from individuals that are not worshiping and praising God and worshiping God with that territory. So God delivered you, brought you out of Egypt so that he might bring you in. Pay attention to that. He brought you out of Egypt so that he might bring you in to your land of promise. What do you do in that land of promise? Now, that is where we needed the word Shiloh. That is where the idea of Shiloh comes up. Shiloh is what you do in your land of promise. So God brings you out from the land of Egypt with a purpose to give you a land of promise. But it's not just to give you a land of promise where you just enjoy. When they got to the land of promise, they needed to fight. They needed to conquer. They needed to subdue. They needed to chase out all those people that were occupying that land of promise. And only after then they could possess it. But it's not even enough for them to possess it for themselves. So God is not after your own. God is not after your own interest. God is not just after your own egocentric, selfish interest that, he wants to give you a land that flows with milk and honey. Unfortunately, a lot of Christians, we teach, Christianity as if it's just a dreamland, a kind of, what do you call it? Yeah, a kind of wonderland where you just come into and you just come and enjoy, a land where there is milk and honey flowing, and you don't have any challenge, you don't have, and you don't have anything to resolve. No, that place where you are going to rest is heaven. Heaven is the resting place for the believer. But while you're on the earth, he has a job for you. He saved you for that job, For you, in fact, he packaged you for that purpose. He packaged you with specific gifts, with specific peculiar calling, so that you might take his presence that is in you right now, so that you might take his glory that is already in you and go and manifest it in your area of gifting, in your area of calling, in your area of passion, in your promised land. That is your promised land. So just like he delivered Egypt, and he delivered Israel from Egypt, the children of Israel, as a goal of why they were delivered not just for them to enjoy life and roam about life until they die, but they were delivered so that they will carry out the promise of God. What is the promise of God? To reclaim back the earth, to reclaim back the land of promise, to reclaim back the land that God promised to their fathers, which is the land of promise, the land of Canaan. Just like God promised us, humanity, Adam and Eve, God had given us the earth as our possession. But since we have lost it, he now saved us, put his glory in us, put the glory of the sons of God in us, redeemed us, came into our lives to live. His kingdom is in us, so that we might now come out and go and find our land of promise, go to that particular sphere of life and create and build a Shiloh there for God. That is why I call this message Building a Shiloh for the Lord. Hello everybody, DSA here. I would like us to spread this word together. Let the gospel of the kingdom conquer the world. We only need you to help us take 5 simple steps. What are these steps? 1, go ahead and like the video, please, if you have not yet done that. Number 2, we need you to subscribe to this channel. Have you yet subscribed? You not yet done it? Go do it now. Number 3, you need to press and click on that bell. You see the bell there? That will give you notification of every video that we do. Then the next thing you need to do, write your comments. Let's know what you think, good or bad. And then of course you have other platforms like Instagram, like Facebook. Share this video on your other platforms. All right, let's win the world for Christ.